All right, everybody, welcome. We are back together again, our Business Networking Roundtable Podcast. My name is David Carr with Steward Your Business, and I'm joined here with some other fellow colleagues. I'll let them introduce themselves. We'll go around the table here. Curtis, would you go ahead and do your introduction, please?
You want to introduce me? Oh yeah, this I'm Doc C. Mergers and acquisitions, and I have my E4 math philosophy system, and that of course is a system we developed for years. Entering, evaluating, enhancing, and exiting business ownership. It's 4 cycles of business ownership, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me, David.
Oh yeah, glad to have you here. How about you, Stacy?
Stacy Kinoshita, I am your business resource specialist. And what I do is I work on strategies to address 2 areas for business owners. One is their workforce concerns and their cash flow. Do a lot of that through offering employee programs, employee benefits, as well as tax incentives, seeing if they qualify for tax incentives. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Stacy. And Charlie is joining us this week. Thanks, Charlie, for joining us.
Thank you, David, for having me. So my name is Charlie Chen for the older folks, almost like the detective Charlie Chan, off by 1 letter. It's CHEN instead of AN. But I work as the Chief Experience Officer over at Intelisys, and we do cybersecurity for small to mid-sized companies. And our main objective and commitment is to deliver peace of mind and just protect your livelihoods for your business and all the staff and family that count on your business to continue to operate and to thrive. Back to you, David.
Thanks, Charlie. All right. So, and again, with David Carr here, Steward Your Business, my focus is overall organizational health, team engagement, company culture, which we're going to talk a bit about tonight. We were talking about leadership last week, and we are going to kind of continue on that theme. But leadership from an overall organizational culture, like how is the culture, how is that led throughout the company? And so we've got some great experts here that have different experiences along that journey. And again, before we just started the recording tonight, we were just talking about our experiences in that area from Curtis and Stacy and Charlie. So I want you guys to just we'll talk a little bit about this. What does it mean to you? We talked about leadership. What does leadership mean last week when we met? But leadership in the way of culture. What does that mean? Like the priority, where does culture fit in, and where does a leader in the organization, what does that fit in? Is that, I'm just going to give some scenarios for you guys to share with. Does that start with the president of the company, the higher ups, the board, or is it more the responsibility of the employees and the lower level folks to try and push that culture or create that culture? What's your take on where does leadership come in when it comes to company culture? I'll start with you, Doc C.
Yeah, I think do you remember back in the 90s, maybe the 90s, latter part of 80s, 90s, even 2000s, I can't remember, but where we dove into mission statements, visions, and all that kind of stuff. I hate to go back to that, but it really starts there. I mean, what is your mission? But you don't have to have a 2-page mission statement. It's got to be short and sweet, and I always fall back to my athletics when I played sports all my life, and everybody knew the objective from the coach all the way down to the players and even the parents, if you're talking high school or whatever, and that's to win. The idea, I mean, you knew the mission. The mission was to win, to get a W, and even maybe make the playoffs or whatever it might be. But to answer your question, I think the leadership, you have to have a mission. You have to have a vision, a plan, and then you have to develop all these systems to correlate to that mission, because we're human and we're crazy. And what I mean by that is that we need systems. Humans need systems to keep us accountable to those systems. Mm-hmm. And so you first start with the mission, and then you can trickle down. But that's just that's my 2 cents for the start of this talk.
I think that's great. I would say, let me ask Charlie this question. Charlie, if you don't have a mission, is it hard to get, like I said, how do you win then if you don't have a mission, right? Like if you're trying to implement cybersecurity rules and guides, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see people easily adopting that if there's no mission or a clear win? Like why would they, right?
Right. Yeah. Where there's no vision and mission, people perish. And so everything rises and falls by leadership, and it's definitely top down. If the management team, the leadership team are not leading by example, it doesn't matter what they say or um, what the lofty mission statement or vision statement is. It's just a concept. And until everybody is living, breathing examples of the mission and the values, it's just lip service. So,
Have you ever asked somebody anybody can answer this, Charlie. Have you ever asked somebody, the company, what their mission is or their values or vision, and they have to go look something up? Like,
right, exactly. If they have to look, they have to look. Then the company, the leadership has.
Did you fail? Yeah. Is that a fail?
Yeah, that's
no pass. Yeah. Go ahead, Stacy. What are your?
No, if they got to look, they're on my prayer list because they're just all over the place. They don't have a goal where they're going. I agree with Doxy. Without a mission and a vision, you don't have a starting point. And that mission and that vision and your values is what shapes the overall structure of the company, from systems to HR to it's a guiding point to every area of the business. And so I like that, Doxy, how you brought that up, because again, I see a lot of small business owners. They may even have a mission or a vision statement, but like Charlie says, do they actually live it, or do they even have a system to implement it? And I think that's where a lot of companies fail. They can have that mission and vision statement, but if they don't have ways to enforce it or ways to get buy-in from the employees, then it's lost. Or if they start from nowhere, what'll happen is a lot of business owners who start off as technicians, maybe they are great at baking and they decide, well, I'm going to go open up my own bakery. And so they get excited about the technician part of the business, and they start hiring employees. And if they don't fail to create this mission and vision and set the values of the company, what'll happen is that the employees then will start creating a company culture. And then the owner actually loses control over the culture that they could have implemented, or the culture, the vision that they have. I see a lot of small business owners, they're like, what happened? This company has turned into something that I didn't envision. Well, you might have envisioned it, but it might have been in your head, and it may not have been on paper, and you may not have expressed it to your employees. And so it gets lost in translation because you're allowing the employees to kind of take over and create this culture. And at that point, when you lose control, it takes more effort to get that control back and reestablish that what the vision and the mission and the culture is. Once you let it go, once the leadership if the leadership doesn't establish it and try to reinforce it, or try to implement strategies to keep that culture strong, it's a challenge to reform that culture.
Yeah, absolutely. That's critical, Stacy. If you're not paying attention, I had a business owner at one point say they felt like they were held hostage by their employees.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're like, well, I don't even know. And so then you have to almost weed out those folks that are really not in alignment anymore. And that takes time, and it's very costly to go through and do that.
It is. And then I think, it's funny. When I was younger, I used to see the larger companies, and I don't know what let's say Honda or somebody, that would change the president of the company, and then the new president would just get rid of all the other executives. And part of that is you have to get rid of the old culture to be able to establish a new culture. I mean, I'm sure Doxy can attest to that you may have to, because once patterns are set in, and to change that, whether it be a branding or a culture, you're right, it does. It takes a lot of work to reestablish a brand or a culture, or to get buy-in to a mission and values and whatnot for a company. So
Yeah, well, to that end, Doc C here. I mean, let's use your expertise, or maybe warning or caution to the business owner. So if I'm a business owner and I'm looking to buy a business or incorporate one to an existing business, what are the things I should be looking at from a culture perspective?
Well, Stacy said something earlier, which is so true. Is that I could be the best auto mechanic on the face of the planet, but that doesn't mean I'm a great businessman or businesswoman. And what that really means is that if I go in there, just what you just said, David, I'm looking to buy a business. Maybe I have a lot of money, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I can run a business. Because as Charlie mentioned, it is top down. But and you better, if you don't know what you're doing, you better get, it's like what we talked about last week. You better find what are those things again? Those little areas that we talked about last week, David.
Yeah, your leadership voice.
Yeah, leadership. You better find people and surround yourself with all the other strengths that your weaknesses are there. And now, if you're a small business, a real small business, I'm talking about maybe 5 to 10 employees, boy, I'll tell you what, you better find people like Stacy and even Charlie and even you, David, to help you develop that culture. Because it's about, and I'll give you an example. I worked with a small little auto repair shop. Okay, they were losing money. They wouldn't start work till about 9. I mean, it was just a mess. And they didn't even have a mission statement. I walked in, I said, okay, here's your mission statement. It's making payroll plus 30% profit. And that's it. So you went around and what's our mission statement? And that's what they would say, make payroll, because they were always behind on payroll all the time. They would bounce checks. They would do all kinds of stuff. So we made it very, very simple. And 6 months later, they're starting to make some money. So it takes a long time, but you have to establish those systems and put them in place. And if you don't know how to do that, that's why we talked about earlier, is the coaching piece is so important. Pay somebody to help you do that, bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think from speaking from all of us, I pay for coaching still myself. I'm hiring somebody to help me in my business. And so it's worthwhile, the return on investment, like you're saying, Doc. See, that Curtis says that you're going to get that return if you're very intentional about that. You'll get there, but without that coaching, and you're just kind of wandering all over the place and kind of hitting things here and there, it's very difficult. And as a business owner, you brought this up, Stacy. Oftentimes we get stuck in maybe the technician side. There's that great book, E-Myth, where he talks about that, right? That E-Myth, where we get that, but we don't want to be the entrepreneur side of things or the manager side of things. And so you need all of those things, and understanding your leadership voice. And this is, I think, a key thing in the leadership that I've observed is oftentimes we hire people that are like us, right? But we avoid the people that are not like us. So, for example, Charlie, I know you're detail oriented. You're looking at things in security. I'm not always more of a people person, connector person. And so, can you speak to that, maybe, Charlie, as to the mix of people? Because I'm sure you're seeing it in organizations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's actually a refocus on EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, and that's actually based on the book Traction. And they have things such as L10, like a level 10 meeting for the leadership team, and just having defined roles and responsibility in terms of having a visionary, which typically is going to be the CEO or the owner of the business, having an integrator who's going to understand the operational, be the operational minded person to implement the parts of the vision that makes sense, that is plausible, feasible, and then there's all the different typical departments, right? Like operations, sales and marketing, admin and back office. So having that clear understanding of the different strengths, like you said, the five voices that you mentioned, that helps people identify their strengths and their quote unquote weakness or areas of opportunity, and you want to build on people's strengths and plug them in where it makes most sense for them. So for me, I'm more, like you said, detail oriented, so I would fall under the operation side of things and less on the visionary part, and then so you want to put the right people in the right seats of your bus. If you have, I mean, it's easy to have. Well, it's not easy actually. It's not easy to find like A players or rock stars. That's what we call them. But when you find them, you put them in the wrong seat on your bus, or you're not clear on the seats, then you're gonna burn them out and they're gonna leave. Or you can just, I mean, that it all starts from within. You need to have clearly defined what you need, what's needed for the business, have clearly defined roles and responsibility, because the idea with that is if everybody's responsible for figuring out how to move forward, nobody's accountable. And so you need to have that divide and conquer mentality. So,
yeah. Put Stacy a question for you. So where's the pitfalls for some of the business owners? We talked about this earlier before we came on tonight. Where are the pitfalls you've seen where the business owners have missed this opportunity to create the culture?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I think a lot of times when a business owner doesn't see their role and responsibility as a true leader, like they don't understand what the role of a leader is. What I mean by that is, I think a lot of small business owners, and this is going to be direct, kind of negate their responsibility as a leader because they feel that they assume because they are the owners that is enough to create a position of leadership. And if you don't understand what your role is in shaping the culture of your business, shaping the systems of your business, like you have to be intentional about every role that you play in your business, whether it be technician, whether it be, with the E-Myth, all those different roles, you have to be intentional, which takes some thinking. And, and a lot of entrepreneurs, they're gung-ho about, I'm going to start my business, I'm going to bring in employees, but they get caught up again in doing the technician work of it and not understanding the work that's required to build a successful business model requires intentional thinking on and actions to build those different areas of their business as a leader. So what happens is when they default to their position, a lot of times when I approach them on the area of creating a culture and addressing their workforce concerns through employee programs or employee benefits, they will look at the benefits and put themselves in that picture and go, I don't need this. And then they will just say, well, I'm not going to offer it. Instead of looking at the bigger picture of what the strategy is, the overall strategy is in bringing in the business and so in the benefits or the programs or the coaching or whatnot, because they don't identify themselves as the leader and the responsible person, the person responsible for creating downwards. They almost see themselves as, I don't want to say an equal, but their behavior is that of an equal with a title because they're an owner. And so they lose, there is no vision. If you can't even start there where your role is and what your responsibility is as a leader within your own company, again, you've lost control from the beginning. You bring in employees, they will create all the wonderful havoc and chaos that you never ever imagined because you did not step into your role and have that vision for your company. So
that's a great perspective, Stacy, in that, yes, they don't see themselves truly as this holistic leader. They look at themselves, right? You're saying, and I think I've seen this, and I'd love to get your take on this, Curtis, too, specifically because I'm seeing, I'll be 50 this month, and I'm looking at the generational gaps from the 20-somethings to the 30-somethings. So if I'm a business owner, a 50-year-old business owner, what motivates me and pushes me is different than some 20-something newer career professional, what they're going in, what they're looking at in the world. So if you look at it only for, like you're saying, Stacey, your perspective, like, I don't need this insurance, or this doesn't mean anything to me. You've got to put yourself in the shoes of every person that's in your organization, just to understand where they're coming from, right? And if you don't do that, what happens, Curtis, if you're not being intentional about where your team is? What have you seen of that?
The chaos. I mean, you mentioned something, David, that was really it really hits home, and that is the different generations, the 20 years, the 30 years, the 40s, the 50s, and now so more than ever, I find the young, the 20s and 30s, these people are getting into what they enjoy doing. As opposed to maybe some of us that started out because, you started and got a job because your parents said, either you get a job or I'm kicking you out or something, that kind of thing. And so you didn't have choices that they do now. And that comes with strengths and weaknesses and pluses and minuses. But with that, you have people that come together that have the same mission or vision. They can enjoy one another, but as again Charlie mentioned, when people get together, something happens. It's just it's all of a sudden it's chaos. I can't remember the author, but I read this book years ago. People were not supposed to work together in buildings. It's as simple as.
What author is this?
I read this, Stacey. I read this 10 years ago, and I can't remember off the top of my head. If I look in my library, I'll try and find it. But he was saying that it's not possible for us to do that. This is just because we come from 2 talks ago from different belief systems, and we want something from the organization. Some want money, some want friendship, somewhat, stability, somewhat. It's just a different ballgame. So that's why I said it earlier in this talk, is I said how important systems are, because at least if you put in systems, my behavior can go in and out of those systems, right? And so can everybody else's, just as long as if I stray away from the system, the system itself brings me back. And that's why systems are so important.
I agree. I agree. I'm working with a company that I'm working with. There's a site estate. The company's headquartered in, I think, Florida. And they hire employees throughout multiple states. And what I like about this company is that the HR director that I'm working with is actually a young guy. So he's open to suggestion. And so he's not just stuck in his old ways, like this is how we do it and we're not going to do anything differently. So he will, when he took on that role as the HR director, he would call me and say, hey, I've got a new hire and whatnot, and just send him an email. And I would say things like, you know what, I'll call him David. No, I won't call him David. Then that's your name. I'll call him Jack. Okay. I said, you know what, Jack, some of the best practices that I've seen from other companies is that what they'll do is that they will require new hires to get the education about the benefits. So, and if they choose to enroll, they can enroll, and if they choose to waive, they can sign a waiver. Therefore, you have a document stating that they received the education and they decline it. And the reason why I make that suggestion is because I've heard stories where people brought in benefits, and maybe they brought in Aflac, and an employee declined it, but then ended up getting cancer, and then now needs cash flow. So they accuse the company of not providing that offer to let them enroll in the benefits. And so a lot of times what I find is that when employees are strapped for cash, or, human behavior, they will do what they need to do. That's why you have false workers' comp claims and all the other false claims that are going on. They will do whatever they need to do to get their bills paid, including accuse a company for XYZ. And so my role, I feel that part of my role is to educate the HR director or the owner as to the best practices to protect them. Because I tell you one thing, the larger companies, they have lawyers in place, they have legal everything, legal team in place to be able to cover them for those things. But the mid-sized business owner who does not have the funds or does not have the capital to hire a legal firm, they're just open shooting duck season. And so we're all in the state of California, and what I find is that California is a state that favors employees. And so these business owners, these small business owners who invest a lot of their sweat equity and their resources, financial resources, into building this business, don't understand that, again, the importance of systems, creating culture, all of that is to protect them and provide them a platform to be able to grow. A lot of those larger companies would not have grown if they didn't have those systems in place. So you're Curtis, you're right. And what they don't understand is, yes, you can look for as an example to the big dogs, but a lot of times the small dogs will dismiss what they see the larger companies do because they feel they're too small. And I think that there's wisdom in looking at what they're doing and seeing what resources are out there for me to get to that level, especially if they are a business owner that's growth minded, meaning that they're not just hiring employees for them to keep their job, but they're actually looking at, how do I grow this business, or how in the future do I sell this business? I think it's crucial to implement all these areas of systems in place, including from everything from cybersecurity to how you save files to the employee benefits, how you document. All of that is, I think, crucial to the long-term survival of any company.
So just along that line, Stacey, to the point, you've got a panel here, those who are listening in tonight, myself, David, Dr. C, Charlie, and Stacey, we all work with multiple businesses. So it's really nice because as a business owner, you can come to any one of us, right? Because we're seeing actually multiple businesses, not just one. But we're seeing a better picture because we can give you a perspective that you don't see, that you're kind of isolated, right? And so I want to ask Charlie a question about the systems, because sometimes I feel like the business owner feels like they have to be, I call them the systems champion, or they're the ones that have to rah it all. But where have you seen success, Charlie, in businesses? Because it's like, I'm trying to help the business owner feel like, oh my goodness, the weight of the world's on me. But how have you seen success in the business owner web, empowering their team, or finding a system champion, or employing some of the things that the systems and the processes that you're developing, Charlie? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's definitely about finding the right people. And it's funny, I'm always reminded of a story where somebody interviewed Howard Schultz, the founder of Starbucks. He's like, how do you get your employees to, always be smiling, always be happy? He's like, I just hire people that like to smile. And so you got to figure out and define who your peoples are, and always be rock star hunting. That's what I call, like, always be recruiting. You always want to be looking for who would be a good fit, who would be a patriot for your cause, for your mission, for your vision, rather than a mercenary. At some point in your business, like what Doc C talks about, the 4 stages, somewhere in the mid stages, it makes sense to bring in mercenaries on certain situations to streamline things and make things work and scale things. But for the most part, especially if you're a small business, you can't afford to be bringing on mercenaries. You have to find those patriots that are going to be the champion of your cause. And that's what I would say, is just start, hire right, manage easy.
That's a great,
yeah.
Charlie, I feel I work with a business owner, and she hires some people. I was just talking to one of our managers,
Right.
and like, some of these people are just really bad. They're like, oh, my hours, I'm done for the day. I'm not going to do anything extra. Like, this is really hurting our business because you're like signed off. So that's a great point, Charlie.
Yeah. And one last thing I want to say is, once you realize you got the wrong person, a wrong culture fit, get them out of there as soon as possible. One bad apple spoils the soup. And so they're not saying you're not saying they're bad people. They're just not a good fit for your culture. And so Jeff Hoffman, the founder of Expedia and all those conglomerate companies that are associated, he talks about, like, he shared a funny story. He finds a salesperson and it wasn't working out, and so he sits him down and be like, "Man, Joe, you're amazing at interviewing. You need to get out there and do more of that. So you can fire people, let people go, bless and release in a nice way, and in a humorous way. So
Yes.
don't make it
When
about,
they
like,
hire-
But
yeah,
okay, but I'd like to add something to that.
Yes,
And the way you hire them without going through all kinds of drama and litigation, whatnot, is systems. If you have a system in place where you document, again, we're talking about California, especially. Again, everything comes to system. If you find your company is personality driven, you're right. Get rid of all of the drama queens and start all over and bring in people that are actually going to follow your system. So,
And it,
go ahead.
yeah, I was just saying, if you create the system that works well, right, Stacy or Curtis, the people that will like appreciate and want that system will stay there, right? If they don't like the system, my experience is they're like, I don't like this, and they will leave almost on their own. You almost have to. It's like you make it in uncomfortable enough. Like, this is our values. This is what we're about, and they're like, it just doesn't fit right for me. You know.
You know, and I just want to give an example of that. I actually acquired a group that was all the way in Maryland and Virginia, and this was a construction company that was owned. It was started by the founder and it was run by the family. And it was funny. They ended up getting a job through working for Amazon, and Amazon required that all of their employees have medical insurance. And they had no benefits set up for their employees at all. And so I actually flew out to Virginia and met with the employees. And it was funny. I think it was an eye opener for the owner. When we introduced the benefits, we explained why the benefits were being offered for them to be able to work for Amazon and do all this other stuff. And people started weeding themselves out. Some were like, well, if I do this, I don't want money coming out of my check. And you had some people grumbling over here and grumbling over there. And the owner realized, like, who was loyal to the mission of the company versus who was just looking out for themselves. I actually watched it. And so when I came back to California, by the way, they didn't have enough participation, so they couldn't get the benefits to go through. And I don't know whether they got the job for Amazon or whatnot, but I think it was an eye opener, and they let those that they felt did not support the company's values and mission, whatnot, they let them go. The sad thing is that it took something like that to identify the players versus the non-players. And I think if a company can come up with a system that identifies their players, like Charlie was saying, what did you call them? Mercenaries versus the
patriots.
The patriots.
Yeah.
If they implement a system that helps identify them quickly, then you eliminate the mold, the bad apples and the whatnot more quickly. So,
we're talking about leadership, and let's face it. There's the few that want to lead, but there's a lot of people that just want to follow. And I think what you said, Charlie, is spot on. And you have to hire with that in mind. You have to try to figure out who's going to be the leader, because a leader could start in the mailroom, but that leader, they will show themselves up every single day. They'll be there. They're supposed to be there at 8. They'll be there at 7. And they'll just they'll sharpen pencils. They'll collect mail. They'll sweep. They'll do whatever. You just have to find those leaders, and they're out there. They don't have to have degrees. Nobody has to have a degree to be a leader. But at the same point in time, there's followers, and those followers just want to be told what to do. I mean, that's just the way it is. That's how businesses go from making nothing to everything. They figure out their players, as you mentioned, Charlie, earlier. Is it's just like a football coach. You're not going to put an offensive lineman as a running back that weighs 350. He's not going to happen. or a wide receiver. I'm just using that as some examples, but you're not going to do that. So you have to try to figure that out. And in doing so, I think, as you said, Stacy, is that when you develop the systems, or at least you have the systems to hire people, I think that helps you define or at least assess those.
Identify, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
identify. Yeah.
And I don't think I fully answered your question, David. I think your question was, it's that weight of the world on your shoulder as a business owner. Like when you're looking at building your culture and building your team, like what's the approach so that it doesn't all rise and fall on you, right? And
Right.
the answer to that is piggybacking off of what we've been saying, which is finding the right people. You definitely want to find people that are smarter than you, and let them know what needs to be done. I mean, what the end goal is. Begin with the end in mind, and get out of their way, right? Go pick up their dry cleaning. Like the rock stars that you bring on will kick you out of working in the business because you're slowing them down, and that's what you're going for. You're trying to get yourself fired from working in the business. That's the magic.
And that's called growth-minded business. Exactly. You said that very well, Mr.
So
Charlie.
this goes to a question for Curtis, because if I'm a business owner and I want to sell my business and it's all about me, why would somebody want to buy a business if it's about the business owner?
Exactly. Charlie hit it. We call that the hub and spoke. And if you're the hub, all the spokes are going to you, the distributors, the sales team, customers, everything. Who do we're calling? We're going to call David because he's going to answer that. And you're the owner. You do not want that. You want to do exactly what Charlie just said, and that is you hire people that are smarter than you are. You hire people that are better than you are, and you try to just kind of sneak out the back and let the company run by itself. I mean, that's ultimately what you're doing, and that's what we try to do even through our E3 phase, is to try to prepare a business owner like yourself, David, to exit. And that is, you create the systems, you get the key employees, you get a team out there that's going to answer everything and do everything for you, and so that you can go on your yacht wherever you're going to.
And it doesn't just as much as we'd love to have it organically just happen, it just doesn't work that way. It takes intention.
It takes a lot of work. And David, you are right, and it takes a lot of money. You're going to have to pay for this, but yet if you put in the dollars, you're going to reap 3, 4, 5 times of what you would actually got if you sold the business yourself. Well, you're not going to sell you. No one wants to buy you anyway.
Right.
So that's exactly what we try to do. We try to get them to think differently. We call that a mind shift, not a mindset, but a mind shift. We have to shift that mind of theirs.
So I know we're getting close kind of toward the end of our time tonight, because we try to keep this within 45 minutes or so of our shows here. But I want to, as you guys were talking, I've been going through The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is a classic book. You guys probably know that book. In that book, there's a concept of, and I want you guys to maybe all comment this. There's in the proactive first habit, we talk about, being dependent, being independent, and being interdependent. Interdependence is kind of where the goal is. Where you're saying, I hear what you're saying, Curtis. Like, how or whatever have you seen that successful in your career, this interdependence, and how have you become like, we're interdependent upon each other because we recognize we're more successful together, relying and sharing with each other versus going it alone. And so I came in, I met all of these folks through an organization called MNO, which is a great group if you're interested in doing some networking there. But just talk a little bit about your own journey, because everybody has this journey, I believe, of, okay, I'm dependent on somebody. Now I'm independent. I'm making it my own. And then I realized the interdependence is necessary. Maybe I'll start with Stacy, if you don't mind, and just sharing your thoughts there.
Let me get your question straight about
your journey to become valuing interdependence and how that has helped the culture, relying on other people, like kind of Charlie had also talked about, and Doc C, and instead of like you said earlier, Stacey, the business owner, like, I'm just going to go it alone. I'm going to be independent. I'm just going to do it my way. Like you understood this and you went through this change, like just a little bit, share with us your experience.
I'd love to share that. What I find is that saying that no man is an island unto himself. When you establish yourself and you truly want to be a business owner, and I'm referring back to Robert Kiyosaki's the 4 quadrants. So if we know that a real business owner is you can stay self-employed and be a lone wolf and do your thing. But everything, basically you're a one-man shop. Something happens to you, you're gone. So if you are really intentional about building a business, and that business requires you to run it on systems, there is no way that you can be the cook, the chef, the server, the floor cleaner. You have to have a team of people to help build that business. That's where the interpersonal relationships come in. And so again, it's about the mission, the vision, and the values. If your mission and your vision is to build a $1 million company, good luck doing it on your own. Just good luck. And so you need people. Matter of fact, being interpersonal, just in life in general, to be successful in life, you need people in your life. You can't get anywhere just on your own. So that's just a concept about life and period. So now take that same concept and apply it to a business. You cannot get anywhere. What's his name? Jeff Bezos, anyone who's building a large corporation, a $1 billion corporation, cannot do that doing everything on their own. And they can't do that just by throwing a bunch of people into positions and not having systems in place. They can't do that by making sure that the people that they bring on board feel that they're taken care of and that they're growing and that they're developing. And you cannot handle all of that yourself. And so everything, these conversations that we're having have to do with this topic, period. The statistics show that, and we all know this, that within 5 years, 95% of businesses that start today will be gone. And when they take a deeper dive into why those businesses are gone, a lot of them don't have the mentorship to be able to show them how it's done, all the pitfalls or whatnot. So I get it. When I started my business, I went gung-ho. I said, I'm going to start a business. And once I jumped in, head, body, I realized, oh my goodness, what did I just do? Like, how am I going to build this business? And I realized very quickly that I needed to bring in people who knew more than I did. And of course, if it's not an employee, you need somebody like Charlie to help you set up systems with your cybersecurity. You need someone like Doxy to show you how to structure your business so that that if you decide to sell it as an entrepreneur in the future, that you actually have a sound structure in place. Someone like me that can come in and show them how to also, all of us help create that culture, but you go in and you bring in team unity. That is so important. And if you're not willing to pay for a mentor on your own, then bring in people that can actually come in and bring that value to your business and help you set up those structures and help you maintain those structures. So that's my take on that. So.
Thanks, Stacey. How about you, Charlie? And then we'll give Doxy a chance to chime in here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the interdependence, the distinction there is that we're not dependent on other people to get our own crap done, right? Get our own shiitake done. But we create exponential growth when we come together and create that synergy, because we're able to count on each other to take care of each of our own shiitake, right? So that's the whole idea of interdependence, is instead of me waiting on you to take care of your crap and you waiting on me, like we're each pulling our own weight at an A-player level, and then magic happens when we come together and put our heads together. And also knowing yourself, like what Doxy said, it's not everybody's wired the same way. Not everybody wants to be the shot caller, right? The entrepreneur, the business owner. Like for me, I'll give you a perfect example. I'd rather be an intrapreneur, where I'm working in a business, but I think like an entrepreneur. I'm going to build out, processes and systems as if it was my own business. But I don't want like everything to rise and fall on me in terms of thinking about like the vision and everything, because I'm too detail oriented and I get stuck in the weeds all the time. So I know I'm not a good fit to be the visionary. So know thyself and understand and leverage your strength, and that's where the interdependence comes in.
You're giving
Is
me some ideas from future talks, Charlie, about knowing
Absolutely.
thyself and some other cool tools we can dig into. Doc
Yep.
C, how about you? What's your take on this?
Well, it's interesting. When I was growing up and even going into any business, part time or otherwise, I would sit and I'd be like a sponge, and because I was afraid to do anything. But then you hear the owner, okay, we got to make money, we got to do whatever. But what I was always I was that kid that was going, okay, well, how are we supposed to do that? Because back in the day, 30, 40 years ago, they didn't have the systems that they have now right now. So we would start working, but we're just not even, we don't even know how that profit and how that is evolving. And so my point to that is that, and Charlie hit on it just now, is you want people to be entrepreneurs, especially now than ever before, because you need to let them know that this company could be sold or bought or sold, or we'll buy it, or we'll acquire other companies in a heartbeat. Now, what does that mean for you as an employee or even in management? You better be ready to sell yourself. And what that means is that you have to create value as an employee. You have to create the value. In other words, when it goes to an acquisition, you're going to be the key employer, or employee. And that's what you want. You want people to step up and do their part to create the value. And that's my 2 cents when it comes to organizations, especially when it comes to acquiring them.
Such good comments, you guys. This has been a great time tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed. I definitely enjoyed it. We're going to continue this series, but just on company culture, leadership. There'll be other topics we're going to be bringing up here. So we'll be sharing more. Follow along. We'll be posting this on our social media channels as well for follow-up. We love your comments and feedback. And any other ideas that you'd want to see discussed here. So I want to just thank you, Doc C and Charlie and Stacy, for coming on tonight and sharing with us all. So until next time, we'll call it a night and say thank you all.
Good night.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. Good night.
Awesome.
Good night, everybody.
Great conversation. Have a good night, everybody.